A hungry child, digging through garbage, discovers two unconscious boys while everyone else walks by. One desperate phone call connects her to their billionaire father, but what began as a simple act of kindness would spark a chain of events no one could have predicted. We'd love to know. Where are you watching from today? Drop a comment below and hit that like button for more incredible stories of fate and compassion. Lily's small hands trembled as she pushed aside the greasy fast food wrappers in the park trash can. At 7 years old, she'd become skilled at finding half-eaten burgers and unopened ketchup packets, treasures that meant she wouldn't go to bed hungry tonight. Her dirty blonde hair hung in tangled strands around her face, and her once pink coat was now a smudged grey. The November chill bit through her worn shoes as she moved to the next bin. "Come on, Lucky," she whispered to the scruffy terrier mix at her feet. The dog, her only constant companion since her mother had been hospitalized 3 months ago, wagged his tail hopefully. "We'll find something good today, I promise." Lily had been living in an abandoned storage room behind the laundromat where her mother had worked before the accident. The owner, Mrs. Chen, pretended not to notice them, but sometimes left a blanket or sandwich where Lily would find it. Social services had come looking once, but Lily had hidden. She'd heard stories about foster care splitting up families, separating children from their pets. She couldn't lose Lucky, too. As she moved deeper into Central Park, she spotted something unusual near a cluster of bushes. Not garbage, but two small forms on the ground. At first, she thought they might be discarded dolls, but as she approached, her heart raced. Two little boys, maybe 5 years old, lay motionless on the cold ground. "Hello!" Lily called, approaching cautiously. When they didn't respond, panic rose in her chest. They were dressed in matching blue coats with fancy shoes, not homeless kids like her. Their faces were identical, twins, with the same dark curls and pale skin, now tinged slightly blue. Lily looked around frantically. The secluded area was empty of other people, despite it being midday in New York's most famous park. She shook one boy's shoulder gently. "Wake up, please wake up." Neither child stirred. Lily noticed their shallow breathing and remembered when her mother had fallen unconscious. The paramedics had said something about her mother's breathing being too slow. With trembling fingers, she searched their pockets, finding a sleek smartphone in one boy's coat. The device was locked, but she knew emergency calls would still work. Her finger hovered over the 911 button, but she hesitated. What if they asked questions about her? What if they took her away while her mother still lay in a coma at Manhattan General? On the back of the phone was a sticker with "If found, call Dad" and a phone number beneath it. Lily made a split-second decision and dialed. "Alexander Blackwood," a deep voice answered immediately. Hello?" Lily's voice quavered. "I found two little boys in Central Park. They won't wake up. They look the same. I think they're sick." There was a sharp intake of breath. "My sons, where exactly are you?" The man's voice turned urgent, commanding. Lily described the location as best she could, mentioning the nearby playground and carousel. "Stay with them. Don't move. I'm 3 minutes away," the man ordered before the call cut off. Lily huddled next to the unconscious twins, draping her thin coat over them, while Lucky pressed against her for warmth. She gently brushed leaves from their faces, noticing how their eyelids fluttered but didn't open. Their matching outfits looked expensive, soft wool coats with embroidered emblems on the breast pockets. Exactly 167 seconds later, Lily had counted. Tires screeched nearby and running footsteps pounded toward them. A tall man in a suit burst through the bushes, followed by what looked like bodyguards. "Ethan! Mason!" The man, Alexander Blackwood, fell to his knees beside the boys, checking their pulses and breathing. His face, previously composed, crumpled with fear. "Call Dr. Winters. Tell her suspected hypoglycemic shock," he barked at one of the men behind him. Only then did his piercing blue eyes find Lily. crouched nearby with Lucky pressed protectively to her chest. "You found them?" he asked, his voice softer now. Lily nodded, suddenly afraid. Would he be angry that a homeless girl had touched his fancy children? Instead, the man reached out and touched her shoulder. "Thank you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You may have saved their lives." Within minutes, paramedics arrived, loading the twins onto stretchers. Alexander spoke rapidly to the medical team about diabetes and missed their monitoring alarm. As they prepared to leave, Alexander turned back to Lily, who was slowly backing away. "Wait," he called. "What's your name?" "Lily," she whispered, clutching Lucky tighter. "Lily, where are your parents?" She froze, eyes darting to possible escape routes. "My mum's sick in the hospital. I'm okay by myself." Alexander's expression changed as he truly saw her for the first time. The dirty clothes, the thinness of her frame, the wariness in her eyes. "You're coming with us," he said, not unkindly, but in a tone that brooked no argument. "I can't," Lily said, backing away further. "They'll take Lucky, and I need to check on my mom." Alexander kneeled down to her level. "I promise your dog comes too, and we'll go see your mother. But right now you need medical attention yourself, and I owe you more than I can ever repay. Please." Something in his eyes, perhaps the same fear and vulnerability she felt daily, made Lily nod slowly. As the ambulance doors closed behind them, Lily couldn't help but wonder if she'd made a terrible mistake. But looking at the grateful expression on Alexander Blackwood's face as he held his son's hands, she felt something she hadn't experienced in months: hope. What she couldn't possibly know was how this chance encounter would change her life forever, or the dangerous secrets hidden behind the Blackwood family's perfect facade. The antiseptic smell of Manhattan General Hospital's pediatric wing made Lily's stomach clench. 4 hours had passed since she'd found the twins, and now she sat on an examination table while a kind-eyed doctor named Dr. Reynolds checked her vitals. Slight malnutrition and exposure, but otherwise healthy, the doctor muttered, making notes on her tablet. "When was the last time you ate a full meal, Lily?" Lily shrugged, avoiding eye contact. Lucky, miraculously allowed into the private room after Alexander had whispered something to the hospital administrator, sat vigilantly at her feet. Through the partially open door, Lily could see Alexander Blackwood pacing the corridor, phone pressed to his ear, his voice rising and falling with intensity. Phrases like "security breach and find whoever is responsible" drifted in. "Mr. Blackwood has explained some of your situation," Dr. Reynolds said gently, "about your mother being here. Would you like to see her?" Lily's heart leaped. "Yes, please. Is she awake? Can I talk to her?" The doctor's expression softened with sympathy. "She's still in her coma, honey, but patients can often hear when their loved ones speak to them." 30 minutes later, after being cleaned up and given fresh clothes from the hospital's donation closet, Lily stood beside her mother's bed in the long-term care unit. Sarah Parker lay still, connected to machines that beeped steadily. Her once vibrant face was gaunt, her chestnut hair, the same shade as Lily's, spread across the pillow. "Hi, Mom," Lily whispered, taking her mother's limp hand. "I've been taking good care of Lucky, just like I promised. And today, I helped some kids." Her voice broke. "I really miss you. Please wake up soon." She didn't notice Alexander standing in the doorway until he cleared his throat softly. "The nurses told me what happened," he said, stepping into the room. "The hit and run. I'm so sorry, Lily." 3 months ago, Sarah Parker had pushed Lily out of the way of a speeding car that had jumped the curb. The driver had never been found, and Sarah had remained unconscious since, with mounting medical bills and no family to care for her daughter. "They want to turn off her machines," Lily said, her voice small but defiant. "That's why I ran away. They said there's no money left for her care, and I don't have any other family." Alexander's jaw tightened. He approached the bed, studying the charts and machines with unexpected familiarity. "Ethan and Mason are stable," he said after a moment. "They have type 1 diabetes. Someone tampered with their insulin pumps today during their nanny's shift. If you hadn't found them—" He trailed off, then looked directly at Lily. "You saved my son's lives." Lily shifted uncomfortably under the intensity of his gaze. "Is the nanny in trouble?" A shadow crossed Alexander's face. "She's being questioned. This isn't the first incident." Before Lily could ask what he meant, Alexander continued, "I've arranged for your mother's care to continue indefinitely with the best specialists, and I'd like to offer you a place to stay while she recovers." Lily's eyes widened with suspicion. "Why would you do that?" "Because I owe you a debt," Alexander said simply. "And because no child should be alone on the streets, especially not one as brave as you." A nurse appeared in the doorway. "Mr. Blackwood, your sons are asking for the girl who saved them, and her dog." For the first time, Lily saw Alexander smile, a transformation that made him look years younger. "Shall we go meet them properly?" he asked, extending his hand. Lily hesitated, then nodded, giving her mother's hand a final squeeze. "I'll be back tomorrow, Mom. I promise." In the private room at the end of the pediatric hall, Ethan and Mason Blackwood sat up in adjacent beds. Color returned to their cheeks. At 7 years old, Lily was older but smaller than the 5-year-old twins, a testament to her months of insufficient food. "You're the dog girl," one of them exclaimed when she entered. Lily couldn't tell them apart yet. "That's Lucky," she corrected, allowing the small terrier to approach the beds where the boys immediately began petting him with delight. "I'm Ethan," said the twin, with a tiny scar above his eyebrow. "He's Mason. Dad says you found us when we were sleeping in the park." "You weren't sleeping," Lily said bluntly. "You were really sick." Mason, the slightly quieter twin, nodded solemnly. "Someone tried to hurt us again." Alexander made a sharp gesture and Mason fell silent, but Lily had caught the words. "Again? What did that mean?" "Boys," Alexander said, his tone lighter than his expression, "how would you feel if Lily and Lucky stayed with us for a while?" "In the penthouse?" Ethan asked, excitement lighting his face. "Forever." "For now," Alexander qualified, glancing at Lily, "while her mother gets better." "Yes!" Both boys shouted in unison, making Lucky bark in response. As the twins giggled and played with the dog, Alexander's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his expression darkening instantly. "Excuse me," he murmured, stepping into the hall. Curious, Lily edged closer to the door, listening while pretending to adjust Lucky's collar. "What do you mean you lost the footage?" Alexander hissed into his phone. "Someone deliberately targeted my children, and you're telling me the security cameras mysteriously malfunctioned?" A pause. "No. No police. You know why. Just find whoever did this before they try again." Lily retreated quickly as Alexander ended the call, but not before she saw the fear behind his anger, the same fear she'd lived with since her mother's accident. When Alexander returned, his composed mask was back in place. "Security is arranging transport to the penthouse. We'll leave once the boys are discharged." "Mr. Blackwood," Lily began hesitantly, "is someone trying to hurt your family?" For a moment she thought he wouldn't answer. Then he crouched down to her level, his voice barely audible over the twins' chatter. "Lily, my family lives in a complicated world. Wealth attracts enemies. But I promise you'll be safe with us, all of you." His eyes flickered to Lucky, then back to her. "Do you trust me?" Lily thought about her mother lying unconscious, about the months of scrounging for food, about the genuine gratitude in this powerful man's eyes. "Not yet," she answered honestly, "but I want to." Alexander surprised her with a short laugh. "That's fair. Trust is earned." He stood, offering his hand again. "Let's start with getting you all home and properly fed." As they prepared to leave the hospital, Lily couldn't shake the feeling that she was stepping into something much bigger and potentially more dangerous than she could understand. But with her options gone and winter approaching, she had little choice but to follow the mysterious billionaire into his world of luxury and hidden threats. What she didn't realize was that her mother's accident and the attack on the twins might be connected, or that her simple act of kindness had placed her at the center of a years-old vendetta against the Blackwood Empire. The Blackwood penthouse occupied the top 3 floors of a gleaming skyscraper overlooking Central Park. As the private elevator ascended, Lily clutched Lucky to her chest, overwhelmed by the speed of changes in her life. Just 12 hours ago, she'd been digging through trash for dinner. Now she stood beside a billionaire and his twin sons, heading to a home she could barely imagine. 93rd floor, announced a disembodied voice as the elevator doors slid open to reveal an entrance hall larger than the entire laundromat where Lily had been hiding. "Welcome home, Mr. Blackwood." A tall woman with silver-streaked hair greeted them. Her crisp black suit and alert eyes reminded Lily of the security personnel at the hospital. "The boys' rooms are prepared, and as requested, we've set up the blue suite for Miss Parker and her companion." Her gaze flickered uncertainly to Lucky. "Thank you, Mrs. Winters," Alexander replied. "This is Lily Parker. She'll be staying with us indefinitely. Please ensure she has everything she needs." "Mrs." Winters nodded, her expression neutral but eyes curious. "Of course, sir. Dinner will be served in 30 minutes. Dr. Chen is waiting in your study." At the mention of the doctor, Alexander's jaw tightened. "Boys, why don't you show Lily to her room? Mrs. Winters will help get her settled." As Alexander strode away, Ethan grabbed Lily's hand. "Come on, your room is next to ours." The twins led her through cavernous spaces with soaring ceilings and glass walls that revealed the glittering Manhattan skyline. Lily had never seen such luxury. Furniture that looked like it belonged in museums, artwork on walls, technology seamlessly integrated into every surface. The blue suite turned out to be a bedroom larger than Mrs. Chen's entire laundromat, with an adjoining bathroom that featured a tub Lily initially mistook for a small swimming pool. "That's the control panel," Mason explained, pointing to a tablet mounted on the wall. "You can change the temperature, lights, music, everything." "And that door connects to our rooms," Ethan added, pointing to a door in the side wall, "so we can visit whenever we want." Mrs. Winters cleared her throat. "Young masters, perhaps Miss Parker would like some time to settle in before dinner." The twins reluctantly retreated, promising to return soon, once alone with Mrs. Winters. Lily felt her defenses rise again. "The closet has been stocked with appropriate attire in what we estimated to be your size," Mrs. Winters said, opening doors to reveal clothes still bearing price tags. "Anything that doesn't fit can be exchanged tomorrow." "Why is Mr. Blackwood doing all this?" Lily asked bluntly, setting Lucky down to explore the plush carpet. Mrs. Winters studied her for a moment. "Mr. Blackwood values loyalty above all else, Miss Parker. You showed exceptional courage today, at considerable risk to yourself. He doesn't forget such things." She paused. "The bathroom includes all necessary toiletries. Dinner is served promptly at 7 in the main dining room." After Mrs. Winters departed, Lily sat on the edge of the enormous bed, trying to process her new reality. Lucky jumped up beside her, equally bewildered by their sudden change in fortune. "This can't be real," she whispered to the dog. "People like him don't just take in strays like us." Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of raised voices from somewhere in the penthouse. Curiosity overcoming caution, Lily crept to her door and slipped into the hallway, following the sound to a partially open door. "Absolutely unacceptable!" Alexander's voice rang out. "2 separate security systems failed simultaneously. The nanny's background check was supposedly flawless, yet she disappears the moment my sons are in danger." The preliminary tox screen shows the boy's insulin was replaced with a diluted solution, replied a calmer voice, presumably Dr. Chen. It was designed to trigger gradual hypoglycemia, not immediate crisis. If they hadn't been in the park exerting energy, if that homeless child hadn't found them, you mean, Alexander cut in. A 7-year-old girl accomplished what my entire security team couldn't. The timing is suspicious, a third voice added, deeper, with military precision. 3 months after the Parker woman's accident, her daughter saves your sons? That's not coincidence. Lily's blood ran cold. They were talking about her mother. What are you suggesting, Jackson? Alexander demanded. We need to consider all possibilities, the man called Jackson replied. What if the girl was placed there deliberately? What if this is another attempt to infiltrate your household? A 7-year-old spy? Alexander's voice dripped with sarcasm. Who's been living rough for months on the off chance my sons would be attacked in that specific location? The Parker woman worked for Westlake Industries before the laundromat, Jackson persisted. Victoria Westlake still blames you for her husband's suicide. That was 15 years ago, Alexander dismissed, and Sarah Parker was a low-level accountant who left Westlake's company 5 years before his death. There's no connection. Nevertheless, Dr. Chen interjected, perhaps we should run a DNA comparison between Miss Parker and the boys, just to be certain there's no relation that could explain. Enough, Alexander cut her off. The girl stays. Increase security if you must, but I won't throw a child back on the streets because of your paranoia. And if she's not what she seems? Jackson pressed. There was a long pause before Alexander responded, his voice cold. Then I'll handle it personally, but for now she's under my protection. Lily backed away from the door, heart pounding. What were they talking about? Why would anyone think she and her mother were connected to the attack on the twins? And what had Alexander meant by handling it personally? She retreated to her room, mind racing. Her mother had indeed worked at a place called Westlake before the laundromat, but she'd never mentioned anything about its owner committing suicide or having any connection to the Blackwoods. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Opening the door cautiously, she found Ethan and Mason standing there in matching pajamas, their faces solemn. We heard Dad talking, Mason said quietly. They think you might be bad, Ethan added, but we know you're not. Lily swallowed hard. How can you be sure? The twins exchanged one of those looks that seemed to contain an entire conversation. Because, Mason said, bad people don't risk everything to save strangers. And because, Ethan continued, you need us as much as we need you. Before Lily could ask what they meant, Mrs. Winters appeared at the end of the hallway. Dinner is served, children. At the enormous dining table, Alexander was already seated, his earlier anger carefully masked behind a pleasant expression. As servants placed elaborate dishes before them, Lily noticed the twins' synchronized movements, the way they looked to their father for approval before eating, the careful monitoring of portions. I've spoken with the hospital, Alexander said, addressing Lily. Your mother has been moved to a private room in our medical facility on the 85th floor. You can visit her any time. Lily nearly dropped her fork. She's here, in this building? Alexander nodded. It seemed the most practical solution. Dr. Miller, who specializes in coma recovery, will be overseeing her care starting tomorrow. Why? Lily blurted out. Why are you doing all this? The twins froze, eyes wide at her directness. Alexander, however, seemed unperturbed. Because you saved my sons, he replied simply, and because I believe everything happens for a reason, Lily Parker. The intensity of his gaze made her uncomfortable, as if he were looking for something in her face, some resemblance or sign she couldn't understand. After dinner, as Lily prepared for bed in a bathroom larger than any she'd ever seen, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was missing something crucial about her situation. The Blackwoods had secrets, dangerous ones, and somehow she and her mother were entangled in them without knowing why. As she drifted off to sleep that night, Lucky curled against her side, Lily made a silent promise to her unconscious mother. She would discover the truth about Alexander Blackwood, about the attacks on his family, and about why he really brought her into his home. What she couldn't know was that the Blackwood penthouse contained evidence that would shatter everything she believed about her own identity, or that finding those secrets might put her in greater danger than she'd ever faced on the streets. Lily woke to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows and the disorienting sensation of waking somewhere safe for the first time in months. For a moment she lay still, marveling at the softness of the bed and the warmth of Lucky curled against her side. The events of yesterday crashed back, finding the twins, the hospital, Alexander Blackwood's unexpected generosity, and the disturbing conversation she'd overheard. Something wasn't right about this situation, but she couldn't piece together what. A gentle knock at her door preceded Mrs. Winter's entry, carrying a tray. "Good morning, Miss Parker. I've brought breakfast. Mr. Blackwood had to leave for an emergency board meeting, but he asked that you make yourself at home. The boys are with their tutor until noon." Lily sat up, eyeing the elaborate breakfast spread. "Can I see my mum today?" "Of course. I'll escort you to the medical floor after you've eaten and dressed, Mrs." Winters gestured to a tablet on the bedside table. "Mr. Blackwood also had this prepared for you. It's loaded with age-appropriate educational programs and books. He mentioned you've been missing school." After Mrs. Winters departed, Lily devoured the breakfast. Real eggs, toast with jam, fresh fruit, foods she hadn't tasted in months. Lucky received his own bowl of high-quality dog food, which he attacked with equal enthusiasm. The tablet revealed not just educational programs, but also access to the building's security system. Lily could see camera feeds from the hallways, elevator, and even her mother's medical room. Was this an oversight or intentional? After showering and dressing in new clothes that fit perfectly, jeans, a soft sweater, and sneakers that didn't pinch, Lily found Mrs. Winters waiting to escort her to the medical floor. The private facility occupied the entire 85th floor, with equipment more advanced than what Lily had seen at Manhattan General. Her mother lay in a sunlit room with views of the park, connected to fewer machines, but monitored constantly by attentive nurses. "The latest scans show increased brain activity," explained Dr. Miller, a woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense manner. "Your mother's condition is actually more promising than her previous doctors realized. With the right therapies, there's significant hope for recovery." Lily's heart soared. "She might wake up?" "It's too early to make promises," Dr. Miller cautioned. "But yes, there's reason for optimism. Would you like to sit with her? Familiar voices can help stimulate brain activity." For an hour, Lily held her mother's hand and talked about everything that had happened. Finding the twins, meeting Alexander, their new temporary home. She described the view from their suite and promised that Lucky was being well cared for. "Mr. Blackwood says we can stay until you're better," she told her mother. "But something weird is going on, Mom. They think we might be connected to someone who wants to hurt his family. Did you ever tell me about someone named Westlake?" Her mother remained still, but Lily thought she detected a slight change in the monitor's beeping pattern. After leaving her mother's room, Lily decided to explore. Mrs. Winters had mentioned she was free to visit the building's amenities, including an indoor pool, library, and gardens on the 70th floor. But instead of taking the elevator down, Lily found herself drawn to Alexander's study, the room where she'd overheard the concerning conversation. The penthouse seemed empty, except for staff moving discreetly through distant hallways. With Lucky following faithfully, Lily slipped into the study, closing the door quietly behind her. The room was a testament to power and wealth, walls lined with books, a massive desk overlooking the city, and subtle technology integrated throughout. Framed photographs showed Alexander with the twins at various ages, but Lily noticed there were no pictures of a mother figure. Did the boy's mother die, or was there a divorce? She hadn't heard them mention anyone. Carefully, Lily began searching for anything that might explain why Alexander's security team suspected her. The desk drawers were locked, but a tablet similar to the one in her room sat on the desk surface. When she touched it, the screen illuminated without requesting a password. Heart pounding, Lily navigated through files labeled with corporate names and financial terms she didn't understand. Nothing seemed relevant until she spotted a folder simply labeled Parker. Her fingers trembled as she tapped it open. Inside were dozens of documents, her mother's employment records, medical history, even Lily's birth certificate, and school reports from before their lives fell apart. How had Alexander obtained these? And more importantly, why had he been investigating them before yesterday? A subfolder caught her eye: DNA analysis. Inside was a single document dated 3 months ago, right after her mother's accident. The medical terminology was confusing, but one section stood out in highlighted text. Mitochondrial DNA comparison confirms maternal lineage connection between subject S. Parker and subjects E. Blackwood and M. Blackwood. Probability of half-sibling relationship 97%. Lily stared at the screen, trying to make sense of the words. Half-siblings. That would mean. Her thoughts were interrupted by a voice from the doorway. "I see you found it." Alexander Blackwood stood watching her, his expression unreadable. Lily jumped back from the desk. "I'm sorry, I was just—" He raised a hand, silencing her apology. "I expected you'd investigate. You're too smart not to question why I brought you here." "What does this mean?" Lily demanded, pointing at the screen. "Why does it say my mom is related to Ethan and Mason?" Alexander sighed heavily, closing the door and crossing to a leather chair. He gestured for Lily to sit opposite him. 15 years ago, he began, I was married to Victoria Westlake. It was a merger of family businesses rather than a love match. When I discovered Victoria was embezzling from both companies, I confronted her husband, Charles Westlake, who was unaware of her actions. Lily listened intently, connecting the names to the conversation she'd overheard. Charles took his own life rather than face the scandal, Alexander continued. Victoria blamed me, swearing revenge. We divorced, and she disappeared from public life. He paused, studying Lily's face. 6 years ago, I met your mother. Sarah was working as an accountant at one of my smaller companies. We became close. Lily's eyes widened as understanding dawned. Are you saying... I'm saying that Victoria somehow discovered our relationship, Alexander cut in. Sarah ended things abruptly, resigned from her position, and disappeared. I respected her decision, believing she simply wanted to avoid complications. 9 months later, you were born. The room seemed to spin around Lily. Are you my father? Alexander leaned forward, his eyes the same shade of blue as hers, intense. Yes, Lily, I am your biological father. I only discovered this 3 months ago, after your mother's accident. An accident that looks increasingly like a deliberate attempt by Victoria Westlake to harm the woman who gave me what she couldn't, a daughter. But the twins were born via surrogate after I remarried, Alexander explained. Their mother died when they were infants, another accident that I now believe was orchestrated by Victoria. Lily struggled to process this flood of information. Why didn't you find us sooner? Mom lost her job at the laundromat 6 months ago. We've been struggling for so long. Pain flashed across Alexander's face. I've been searching for you both since I learned the truth. Sarah covered her tracks well, changed her name, moved constantly. By the time my investigators located you, the accident had already happened. He reached for her hand. I never knew about you, Lily. If I had. The door burst open, interrupting his words. Jackson, the security chief, entered with urgency. "Sir, we have a situation. Victoria Westlake was just spotted entering the building's commercial level. Facial recognition confirmed it's her, not an imposter this time." Alexander stood abruptly. "Lock down the residential floors, double security on the medical level and the boys' rooms." "Already done," Jackson confirmed. "But sir, there's more. The DNA reports you requested on the nanny just came back. She's Victoria's niece." Alexander's expression hardened into something that made Lily shiver. This wasn't the composed businessman or the grateful father she'd met yesterday. This was someone dangerous. "Lily," he said, voice controlled but tight with tension, "go to your room and stay there until I come for you. Do not open the door for anyone but me or Mrs. Winters." "But my mom has 4 armed guards outside her door," Alexander assured her. "Now go, please." As Lily hurried through the penthouse corridors with Lucky at her heels, alarms began to sound. Red security lights flashed along the walls, and staff moved with urgent purpose. Through windows, she could see security teams deploying across the building's lower rooftops. In her room, Lily locked the door and curled up on the bed, mind reeling from revelations and fear. Alexander Blackwood was her father, the twins were her half-brothers, and someone named Victoria Westlake wanted to hurt them all. The tablet beside her bed lit up with an incoming message, not text, but a video feed showing her mother's room. The image was sharp enough to see Sarah Parker's face clearly, her eyes still closed in unconsciousness. Then, to Lily's horror, a woman in a nurse's uniform entered the frame, approaching her mother's bed with a syringe in hand. The woman looked directly at the camera, smiled coldly, and held up the syringe as if in toast before turning toward the patient. Lily screamed, but there was no one to hear her in the soundproofed luxury of the blue suite. Alexander was nowhere near her mother's room. All she could do was watch as the woman who must be Victoria Westlake prepared to exact her final revenge. Lily stared in horror at the tablet screen as the disguised Victoria Westlake approached her mother's bed. The security guards Alexander had mentioned were nowhere in sight. Had they been neutralized, distracted by some other threat? Without thinking, Lily slammed her hand on the emergency button on her room's control panel, a feature Mrs. Winters had pointed out during their tour. Instantly, a piercing alarm sounded throughout the penthouse, different from the security alert already in progress. On the screen, Victoria jerked her head toward the door of the medical room, clearly startled by the new alarm. She hesitated, the syringe still poised above Sarah's IV line. That moment's hesitation saved Sarah Parker's life. The medical room door burst open, and Dr. Miller rushed in with 2 security guards. Victoria lunged for Sarah, but before she could inject the contents of the syringe, one of the guards tackled her to the floor. The syringe skittered across the tile, its deadly contents never reaching their target. Lily watched, heart pounding, as Victoria was restrained. The woman looked nothing like Lily had imagined. Elegant, in her 50s, with perfectly styled hair, her features twisted with thwarted rage as she was handcuffed. Even in defeat, she emanated a cold authority that made Lily shiver. The door to Lily's room flew open. Alexander stood there, face pale with fear that transformed to relief when he saw her unharmed. "Are you all right?" he demanded, crossing to her. "The proximity alarm on your mother's floor triggered." Lily pointed shakily to the tablet. "She was going to hurt Mom. I saw her on the security feed." Alexander's eyes widened as he took in the scene still playing out on the screen. "You activated the medical emergency alarm." "It wasn't a question. You saved her life." "Just like she saved mine by pushing me away from that car," Lily whispered. "It wasn't an accident, was it? Victoria was trying to kill me that day." Alexander sat heavily on the edge of the bed. "I believe she was aiming for both of you," The driver was never found, but the vehicle was registered to a shell company I've since connected to Victoria's network. His voice grew softer. Victoria couldn't bear that I had a child with Sarah when she and I had been unable to conceive. Her obsession festered for years. "Why didn't you tell me all this yesterday?" Lily demanded, anger rising through her fear. "I deserved to know I was in danger, that Mom was still in danger." "I was going to," Alexander said, running a hand through his hair, a gesture Lily recognized from her own habits. "I wanted to be certain Victoria was behind the attacks before frightening you with the truth. I never imagined she would be bold enough to come here herself." The tablet beeped with an incoming call. Alexander answered to find Jackson's grim face on the screen. "We have her secured," the security chief reported. The syringe contained potassium chloride would have stopped Mrs. Parker's heart instantly. 4 guards were drugged with something in their coffee, all alive but unconscious. "And the boys?" Alexander asked sharply. "Safe with Mrs. Winters in the panic room," Jackson confirmed. "Sir, Victoria is asking to speak with you. Says she has information about other operatives still in place." Alexander's expression hardened. "I'll be down shortly." He ended the call and turned to Lily. "I need to deal with this. Will you be all right here for a while longer?" Lily hugged Lucky close. "Can I see the twins? And my mum?" "Once we're certain all threats have been contained," Alexander promised. "For now, please stay here where I know you're safe." After he left, Lily paced the room, too agitated to sit still. The reality of her situation was still sinking in. She had a father, a powerful, wealthy father who had been searching for her. She had brothers. And she had an enemy who had nearly killed her mother and was still targeting their family. An hour later, Mrs. Winters arrived with the twins, who immediately wrapped Lily in enthusiastic hugs. "Dad says you're our sister," Ethan exclaimed. "We always wanted a big sister." "Did you really see the bad lady try to hurt your mom?" Mason asked, eyes wide with a mixture of fear and excitement. "Boys," Mrs. Winters admonished gently, "Miss Parker has had quite a shock. Perhaps we should give her some space." "It's okay," Lily said, finding comfort in their innocent enthusiasm. "And please call me Lily if I'm really going to be part of this family." Mrs. Winters' expression softened. "Very well, Lily. Mr. Blackwood asked me to inform you that your mother has been moved to an even more secure facility within the building. He'll take you to see her once he's finished with current matters." The way she hesitated made Lily wonder exactly what current matters entailed. Was Alexander interrogating Victoria personally? Would she be arrested? Or did billionaires handle justice differently? "Can we stay with Lily?" Mason pleaded. "We'll be good." Mrs. Winters hesitated, then nodded. "I'll be right outside if you need anything." Left alone with her newfound brothers, Lily found herself bombarded with questions about her life, her mother, and whether Lucky could sleep in their rooms sometimes too. Their innocence, despite the danger surrounding them, touched something in Lily's heart. "Were you scared living on the street?" Ethan asked, petting Lucky with gentle hands. Lily nodded. "Very scared, but mostly for Mom. I was afraid no one would help her if I wasn't there to remind the nurses she matters." "Dad says everyone matters," Mason said solemnly, "even people without money or fancy things. He says what makes people important is how brave they are and if they help others." "Does he really?" Lily asked, surprised by this philosophy from a billionaire. Both boys nodded vigorously. "He takes us to the homeless shelter every Christmas to serve food," Ethan explained, "and he built a whole hospital for kids who can't pay." Lily was digesting this information when Alexander finally returned, looking exhausted but resolute. Mrs. Winters took the twins to their rooms while he sat beside Lily on the window seat. "Victoria is in custody," he said without preamble. "Federal agents have been tracking her network for years. She's implicated in numerous crimes beyond the attempts on our family." "Will she go to jail?" Lily asked. Alexander nodded grimly. for a very long time. But more importantly, she's given up her remaining operatives in exchange for certain considerations. What kind of considerations? That's not something you need to worry about, he said, deflecting the question. What matters is that you and your mother are safe now, as are Ethan and Mason. Lily studied his face. The face she now recognized had features she saw in her own mirror, the same blue eyes, the same shape to their jawline. How had she not seen it immediately? What happens now? She asked quietly. Alexander took a deep breath. That depends partly on you, Lily. Legally, I've already filed for emergency guardianship given your mother's condition, but I want this to be your choice too. You can stay here as my daughter and the boy's sister. We can be the family we should have been all along. And Mom, when she wakes up, if she'll have me, I'd like a second chance with her too, Alexander admitted, vulnerability showing through his composed exterior. I never stopped caring for her, Lily. When she left, I respected her decision because I thought that's what she wanted. I didn't know about you. She kept a picture of you, Lily revealed suddenly. In her dresser drawer. I found it once. You in a business suit standing in front of some building. She said you were just someone she used to know, but she looked sad when she said it. Hope flickered in Alexander's eyes. Then perhaps, when she wakes up, we can start again. All of us. Before Lily could respond, her tablet lit up with an incoming notification. Dr. Miller's face appeared on the screen, her expression excited. Mr. Blackwood, Lily, you need to come to the medical floor immediately. Sarah Parker is showing signs of waking up. The next hour passed in a blur as Lily sat beside her mother's bed, holding her hand while medical staff monitored vital signs that showed increasing brain activity. Alexander stood nearby, his presence supportive but unobtrusive. Talk to her, Dr. Miller encouraged. She can hear you. Help guide her back. Mom, Lily began, voice breaking with emotion. It's me, Lily. You're safe now. I'm safe too. And I found my dad, our family. Please wake up. We're waiting for you. Sarah Parker's eyelids fluttered, then slowly opened. For a moment, her gaze was unfocused. Then her eyes found Lily and filled with tears of recognition. Lily, she whispered, her voice hoarse from months of disuse. My brave girl. Then her gaze moved beyond Lily to where Alexander stood, and a complex mixture of emotions crossed her face. Shock, fear, longing. Alexander? The word was barely audible. He stepped forward, taking her other hand gently. Hello, Sarah. Welcome back. As medical staff bustled around them, checking vitals and adjusting equipment, Lily watched her parents' silent communication, years of separation and secrets conveyed in a single, charged gaze. Victoria? Sarah asked, alarm suddenly tensing her features. Is in custody, Alexander assured her. She can't hurt any of us anymore. Sarah relaxed slightly, then looked back at Lily with dawning comprehension. You know, she said, about your father. Lily nodded. I found the twins when they were in trouble. It brought us all together. A weak smile touched Sarah's lips. Always saving people, just like your father. Dr. Miller gently interrupted. Mrs. Parker needs rest now. You can return in a few hours when she's stronger. As they left the medical room, Lily felt lighter than she had in months, years perhaps. Her mother was awake. The woman who had threatened their family was captured, and for the first time since she could remember, Lily felt completely safe. In the elevator returning to the penthouse, Alexander spoke softly. I meant what I said about this being your choice, Lily. If you're uncomfortable with any of this, I want to stay, Lily interrupted. With you and the twins, with Mom when she's better. I want us to be a real family. Alexander smiled, the first genuine, unreserved smile she'd seen from him. Then that's what we'll be. What neither of them realized was that Victoria Westlake's network extended far beyond what she had revealed to authorities. While one threat had been neutralized, others lurked in shadow, waiting for the perfect moment to strike at the newly reunited Blackwood family. In a maximum security holding cell across the city, Victoria Westlake smiled to herself as she was processed for transfer. Phase 1 of her plan was complete, infiltrating the Blackwood Tower and confirming the Parker girl's identity. The sacrifice pieces had been moved into position. Now it was time for the real game to begin. 3 weeks after Sarah Parker awoke from her coma, autumn gave way to winter in New York City. The first snow of the season dusted Central Park with white, transforming the view from the Blackwood penthouse into a winter wonderland that delighted the twins. For Lily, these weeks had been a whirlwind of adjustments. Her mother had been moved from the medical facility to a rehabilitation suite on the 92nd floor, where she was rapidly regaining strength through daily physical therapy. Alexander had enrolled Lily in the same exclusive private school the twins attended, arranging for tutors to help her catch up on the months of education she'd missed. Most surprising was how quickly the twins had accepted her as their sister, seamlessly incorporating her into their lives as if she'd always been there. Ethan was the more outgoing twin, constantly dragging Lily into adventures throughout the building's many amenities, while Mason, quieter and more thoughtful, shared his extensive book collection and introduced her to chess. This particular morning found Lily sitting cross-legged on her mother's bed, watching Sarah carefully brush her hair, a simple task that had been impossible just days ago. "Your father wants to take us all to his house in Aspen for Christmas," Sarah mentioned, setting the brush down. "What do you think?" Lily still found it strange to hear her mother acknowledge Alexander as her father so openly after years of silence on the subject. "Do you want to go? Are you strong enough?" Sarah smiled. "Dr. Miller says the mountain air would be good for me, and yes, I think I'd like to go." She hesitated. "How are you adjusting to all this, Lily?" "It's a lot of change very quickly. It's weird," Lily admitted. 3 months ago we were barely surviving, and now—" She gestured at the luxury surrounding them. "Sometimes I still wake up thinking we're in that storage room behind the laundromat." "I'm sorry," Sarah said softly. "I thought I was protecting you by keeping you away from Alexander and his world. I never imagined Victoria's obsession would follow us anyway." Lily had learned more about her mother's history with Alexander over these weeks, how Sarah had fallen in love with her billionaire boss despite knowing his complicated past, how she'd discovered her pregnancy after already leaving his company, fearful that Victoria Westlake's vendetta would extend to an innocent child. "Dad says the FBI is still questioning Victoria," Lily said. "They think she might have been behind other corporate attacks too." Sarah's expression darkened. Victoria was always brilliant, but there was something cold inside her. Even before everything fell apart, Alexander worried about her stability. Their conversation was interrupted by a knock at the door. Alexander entered, dressed casually in jeans and a sweater, an outfit Lily was still getting used to after initially knowing him only in impeccable suits. "Good morning," he greeted them, kissing Sarah's cheek and squeezing Lily's shoulder affectionately. "How are my favorite ladies today?" "But Mom can brush her hair by herself now," Lily reported proudly. "Impressive progress," Alexander acknowledged with a warm smile at Sarah. "Dr. Miller says you're her star patient." The ease between her parents still surprised Lily. Despite 15 years of separation, they had fallen into a comfortable rhythm, rebuilding their relationship slowly but steadily. Alexander spent every evening in Sarah's suite, sometimes just talking for hours after Lily had gone to bed. "I told Lily about Aspen," Sarah said. "I think a family Christmas sounds wonderful." The boys are already planning snowball ambushes," Alexander chuckled. "Fair warning." Lily hesitated, then asked the question that had been bothering her. What about Victoria? Is it safe for us to leave New York? Alexander and Sarah exchanged a look that Lily had come to recognize. Adults deciding how much truth to share with a child. Victoria remains in federal custody, Alexander said carefully, and I've arranged for additional security at the Aspen property. We'll be perfectly safe. Before Lily could press for more details, her tablet chimed with a message from Ethan. Emergency sister meeting in the treehouse, now. The treehouse was actually an elaborate indoor playhouse built in a corner of the penthouse's massive family room, complete with rope ladders and secret passageways. It had quickly become the children's favorite gathering spot. Duty calls, Lily said, sliding off the bed. The twins probably want to plan our sledding strategy for Aspen. As she hurried through the penthouse corridors with Lucky trotting at her heels, Lily reflected on how much her life had transformed. Not just the material changes, though going from homeless to living in a penthouse was certainly dramatic, but the emotional landscape of her existence. After years of it being just her and her mother against the world, she now had a father, brothers, and an extended household of staff who treated her with warmth and respect. Reaching the family room, Lily climbed the rope ladder into the treehouse where Ethan and Mason waited with uncharacteristically serious expressions. "What's the emergency?" she asked, settling onto a cushion. Ethan glanced around conspiratorially before pulling out a tablet different from the ones they normally used. "We found this in Dad's study. Look." He activated the screen, revealing a series of security footage clips. Lily recognized the lobby of their building, the street outside, and several other locations around the tower. "You shouldn't be taking Dad's things," Lily admonished, though curiosity kept her from immediately returning the device. "We didn't steal it," Mason clarified. "We were playing hide-and-seek in his study during his morning meeting, and it was showing these videos. We just borrowed it for a minute." Ethan tapped one clip, enlarging it. "Watch this person." The footage showed a delivery person entering the building's commercial level, passing through security with barely a glance from the guards. Nothing seemed unusual until Ethan froze the frame and zoomed in on the delivery person's face. "Now look at this one from yesterday," he continued, bringing up another clip of a different delivery person. "I don't understand," Lily said, looking between the images. "They're different people." "But look at their eyes," Mason insisted. "Really look." Lily leaned closer, studying the frozen images. Despite the different faces, one male, one female, there was something eerily similar about their eyes. The same calculating gaze, the same slight asymmetry in how they narrowed when looking at security cameras. "It's the same person," she whispered, realization dawning. Different disguises, but the same person. Ethan nodded grimly. "They've been coming every day this week. Different outfits, different faces, but always at exactly 11:15 a.m. And they always go to the same place, the mailroom on the commercial level." "Have you told Dad?" Lily asked, alarm growing. The twins exchanged guilty looks. "We tried," Mason said, "but he's been so busy with the FBI people and with your mom and the Christmas plans. And the last time we thought we saw something suspicious, it turned out to be Mrs. Winter's nephew starting his new job in security," Ethan added. "Dad said we were being paranoid." Lily checked the time on the tablet, 10:47 a.m. "If the pattern holds, whoever this is will be here in less than 30 minutes. "We need to warn Dad," Mason said. "But what if we're wrong again?" Ethan worried. "He'll never take us seriously next time." Lily thought quickly, remembering how Alexander had praised her observational skills when she'd noticed the security camera in her mother's room. "We need proof. Real proof, not just our suspicions." "How do we get that?" Mason asked. A plan formed in Lily's mind, risky but potentially effective. "The service elevator goes straight to the commercial level. If we can get down there before 11:15, we might be able to see what this person is really doing." Ethan's eyes widened with excitement. "A spy mission!" "Not a game," Lily cautioned. "If this person is connected to Victoria, they're dangerous. We observe only from a safe distance, then come straight back up to tell Dad or Jackson." After quick deliberation, the children formulated their plan. Using Ethan's security access card, granted so the twins could visit their father's office on the executive floors, they would take the service elevator to the commercial level. From there, they would use the maintenance corridors that Mason had memorized from building schematics. The quieter twin had an almost photographic memory for maps and layouts to reach an observation point near the mailroom. "Lucky stays here," Lily decided, knowing the dog might attract attention. "And we need to be back within 30 minutes, or someone will notice we're gone." At 11:03, the three children slipped into the service elevator, hearts pounding with the thrill and fear of their mission. Lily carried the tablet, ready to record anything suspicious. As the oldest, she felt responsible for keeping her brothers safe while still investigating what could be a genuine threat to their family. The commercial level was a maze of offices, small businesses, and service areas that occupied the tower's lower floors. Following Mason's directions, they navigated through maintenance corridors used primarily by custodial staff, eventually reaching a ventilation grate that overlooked the mailroom's sorting area. 7 minutes to 11:15, Ethan whispered, checking his watch. Through the grate they could see several employees sorting packages and letters. Nothing seemed unusual until the back door opened and a maintenance worker entered, pushing a cart of cleaning supplies. "That's not the same person from the footage," Mason whispered, disappointed. Lily studied the maintenance worker carefully. Average height, forgettable features, standard uniform. But something about the way they moved, efficient, purposeful, eyes constantly scanning, triggered her street-honed instincts. "Yes, it is," she breathed. "Different disguise, but watch how they check the cameras. Same person." The maintenance worker positioned their cart near a row of mailboxes labeled with company names. With movements so casual they were almost imperceptible, the worker slipped something from their pocket into one of the mailboxes while appearing to clean the surrounding area. Lily quickly recorded this on the tablet, zooming in as much as the camera allowed. The mailbox was labeled Blackwood Medical Research. "We need to tell Dad," Mason urged, "right now." As they turned to leave, Ethan's foot caught on a loose panel, creating a metallic scraping sound that echoed in the confined space. Below, the maintenance worker's head snapped up, eyes locking directly on the ventilation grate where they hid. For one terrifying moment, Lily found herself staring into the eyes of someone she instinctively knew was extremely dangerous. Someone who now knew they were being watched. "Run!" she whispered urgently, pushing her brothers ahead of her. "Back to the elevator! Now!" As they raced through the maintenance corridors, they could hear footsteps following, measured but gaining. The maintenance worker had abandoned all pretense of their cover role and was now in pursuit. Reaching the service elevator, Lily slammed the call button repeatedly, while Ethan clutched the security access card they would need to return to the residential floors. Come on," she muttered, as the elevator indicator showed it descending from a higher floor. The footsteps grew closer. Mason whimpered slightly, pressing against Lily's side. Just as the elevator doors finally opened, they heard a voice, calm, female, with a slight accent they couldn't place. "Children shouldn't play in maintenance areas. It's dangerous. Why don't you come with me instead?" Lily pushed the twins into the elevator, frantically swiping Ethan's access card. As the doors began to close, she caught a glimpse of their pursuer, now without the maintenance worker's cap, revealing striking features and calculating eyes. The woman smiled coldly and held up a small object for them to see, a detonator, thumb poised over the trigger button. "Tell Alexander that Victoria sends her regards," she called as the doors closed completely. The elevator began its ascent, and Lily pulled her brothers close, heart hammering in her chest. "We need to tell Dad right now," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "That woman had a bomb." Within minutes of their return to the penthouse, the building's emergency protocols were activated. Security teams flooded the commercial level, but the maintenance worker had vanished. In the mailbox for Blackwood Medical Research, they discovered a sophisticated explosive device disguised as a package, set to detonate when opened. Alexander paced the secure room where the children had been taken, his expression oscillating between relief that they were safe and fury that they had placed themselves in danger. "What were you thinking?" he demanded. "You could have been killed." "We were trying to help," Lily explained, still shaken, but determined. "No one was taking our concerns seriously." Alexander's expression softened slightly. "You should have come to me directly." "We tried," Ethan insisted. "You were busy." A heavy silence fell as Alexander absorbed this criticism. Finally, he crouched to their level. "You're right. I haven't been as available as I should be, but what you did was incredibly dangerous. Promise me you won't do anything like that again." The children nodded solemnly, though Lily couldn't help adding, "But we were right. Victoria is still trying to hurt us, even from jail." Alexander exchanged a grim look with Jackson, who had joined them in the secure room. "It appears Victoria has more operatives than she revealed to authorities." "She's playing games with us," Jackson added, "using the threat of additional attacks to negotiate her case." "What happens now?" Lily asked, unconsciously taking on the protective role for her younger brothers. Alexander's expression hardened with resolve. "Now we stop playing defense. It's time to end Victoria's vendetta once and for all." As security teams continued sweeping the building and federal agents were called in, Lily couldn't shake the memory of the woman's cold smile as the elevator doors closed, or the casual way she had held the detonator, as if threatening to kill 3 children was a minor detail in her day. For the first time since coming to live in the Blackwood penthouse, Lily wondered if she and her mother might have been safer remaining anonymous and homeless rather than becoming targets in a billionaire's private war. What she didn't yet understand was that they had always been targets, and that the endgame Victoria had been planning for 15 years was only just beginning. The Aspen trip was cancelled. In the wake of the bomb discovery, Alexander had moved the entire family to an undisclosed safe house, which turned out to be a heavily fortified estate in upstate New York. Surrounded by forests and protected by state-of-the-art security systems and a team of former military personnel, the 50-acre compound felt more like a luxurious prison than a home. For Lily, the 2 weeks since they'd fled New York had been filled with a strange mixture of fear and unexpected joy. Despite the circumstances, having her mother, father, and brothers all together in one place created a sense of family she'd never experienced before. Sarah was continuing her recovery, growing stronger each day. The estate's indoor pool provided ideal physical therapy, and Alexander had arranged for her medical team to relocate with them. The twins had adapted to their temporary home with remarkable resilience, turning the sprawling grounds into an adventure playground whenever their security detail allowed them outside. On this particular morning, snow blanketed the estate. Lily sat in the library window seat, watching Ethan and Mason build a snowman under the watchful eyes of 2 guards. Lucky dozed at her feet, having adjusted to their new surroundings with typical canine adaptability. "May I join you?" Alexander's voice came from the doorway. Lily nodded, making space on the window seat. Her relationship with her father remained complex, a mixture of growing affection and lingering wariness. After years of it being just her and her mother against the world, trusting this powerful man didn't come easily. The boys seem to be enjoying the snow, Alexander observed, sitting beside her. They adapt to everything so easily, Lily replied. Nothing seems to scare them for long. Alexander smiled sadly. They've had practice. This isn't the first time we've had to relocate for safety. After their mother died, there were threats. From Victoria? Yes, though I didn't know it at the time. He sighed, running a hand through his hair, that familiar gesture Lily now recognized in herself. I thought bringing you and your mother into our lives would be a new beginning. Instead, I've put you in danger. We were already in danger, Lily pointed out. Mom's accident happened before you found us. Alexander nodded, his expression grim. Victoria's obsession runs deeper than anyone realized. The FBI has been interrogating her for weeks, but she's manipulating the situation, revealing just enough information to delay her prosecution while her network continues operating. Like the woman with the bomb, Lily said, shivering at the memory of those cold eyes. Irina Petrov, Alexander confirmed. Former Russian intelligence, now a mercenary. She's vanished, but facial recognition caught her boarding a flight to Switzerland the day after the incident. Lily hesitated, then asked the question that had been bothering her since they'd fled New York. Why does Victoria hate us so much? I understand she's angry about her husband, but this seems extreme. Alexander was quiet for a long moment. It's not just about Charles's suicide or our divorce. Victoria and I were childhood friends before our families arranged our marriage. We grew up together, were groomed to merge our family businesses. But there was always something unbalanced about her attachment to me. You mean she was obsessed with you? In a way, when we married, she believed I belonged to her completely. The businesses, our social standing, even my personal relationships, she controlled everything. Alexander's voice grew distant, as if remembering a different life. When I discovered her embezzlement and confronted Charles, her perfect world collapsed. In her mind, I betrayed her by choosing integrity over loyalty to her. That doesn't explain why she's still after you 15 years later, Lily observed. Victoria doesn't just want revenge, Alexander explained. She wants to take everything from me that she believes I took from her. My business, my reputation, my happiness. When she learned about your mother and later discovered I had a daughter. He trailed off, pain evident in his eyes. She decided to take us too, Lily finished. Alexander nodded grimly. In her twisted logic, if she can't have me, then I don't deserve a family at all. The library door opened and Sarah entered, moving slowly but steadily with a cane. Her progress over the past weeks had amazed her doctors. "Serious conversation?" she asked, noting their expressions. "Just filling in some blanks about Victoria," Alexander replied, rising to help her to a chair. Sarah's face darkened. "There's something you both should know. When I was still working at Westlake Industries, before I met Alexander, I discovered financial irregularities in the company accounts. Nothing concrete enough to report, but enough to make me uncomfortable. It's why I left that position." "You never told me this," Alexander said, surprised. "It didn't seem relevant when we met years later," Sarah explained. "But now I wonder if those irregularities were connected to Victoria's embezzlement schemes. If so, she might have had me on her radar even before you and I became involved." This revelation hung heavy in the air. Had Victoria been watching Sarah all along? Had their meeting been as coincidental as they believed? Before they could discuss further, Jackson appeared in the doorway, his expression urgent. "Sir, we've got a situation. Facial recognition picked up Irina Petrov in Albany, 30 miles from here. She was purchasing supplies consistent with explosive components." Alexander was immediately on his feet. "Initiate Protocol Echo. Get the boys inside now." Lily watched through the window as security personnel rushed to retrieve Ethan and Mason from their snowman building. Within minutes, alarms sounded throughout the estate. "What's Protocol Echo?" Lily asked, heart racing as Lucky began barking at the commotion. Evacuation, Alexander explained tersely, helping Sarah to her feet. We've been compromised. We need to move to a secondary location immediately. How did they find us? Sarah asked, leaning heavily on her cane as they moved swiftly through the house toward the underground garage. That's what I intend to find out, Alexander replied, his voice cold with controlled fury. Within 30 minutes, the family was in a heavily armored SUV, speeding away from the estate with a security escort ahead and behind them. Lily sat between the twins, who were uncharacteristically silent, their earlier playfulness replaced by solemn watchfulness that seemed too old for their 5-year-old faces. "Where are we going?" Mason finally asked, as miles of forest blurred past the bulletproof windows. "Somewhere safe," Alexander assured him from the front passenger seat, though Lily detected uncertainty beneath his confident tone. They drove for hours, changing vehicles twice at predetermined locations. By nightfall, they had arrived at a small private airfield where a sleek jet waited. "The Blackwood Industries Emergency Protocol," Alexander explained as they boarded. "Untraceable flight plan, secure destination. We'll be at the Montana property before morning." As the jet prepared for takeoff, Lily sat beside her mother, watching her father confer intensely with Jackson at the front of the cabin. The twins had finally fallen asleep across from them, exhausted by the day's tension. "Do you regret it?" Lily asked quietly. "Being found by him? All of this?" Sarah took her daughter's hand, her eyes tired but resolute. "Never. We were always running, Lily. At least now we're not running alone." The jet accelerated down the runway, lifting them into the night sky. As the lights of upstate New York fell away beneath them, Lily couldn't shake the feeling that they weren't escaping danger. They were flying straight toward a confrontation that had been brewing for 15 years. What she couldn't possibly know was that on another private jet, following a parallel course at a discreet distance, Victoria Westlake herself was finally making her move. Despite what Alexander and the FBI believed, she had never been in federal custody at all. The Montana property turned out to be a modernist compound nestled in a mountain valley, its sleek architecture a stark contrast to the rugged wilderness surrounding it. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered spectacular views of snow-capped peaks, while hidden security features created an invisible fortress around the perimeter. 3 days had passed since their hasty flight from New York. 3 days of tense security briefings, hushed conversations between Alexander and his team, and attempts to maintain normalcy for the children despite the circumstances. Lily stood on the deck overlooking the valley, bundled against the December cold. Inside, Sarah was reading to the twins by the massive stone fireplace, creating a pocket of warmth and normalcy amidst the chaos their lives had become. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Alexander's voice came from behind her as he joined her at the railing. "I built this place 5 years ago as a retreat, somewhere completely off the grid." "Is anything really off the grid for people like Victoria?" Lily asked, voicing the fear that had been growing since their evacuation. Alexander sighed, his breath visible in the cold air. "You're too perceptive for platitudes, aren't you?" He gazed out at the mountains. "The truth is, I don't know. Victoria's network appears more extensive than we realized. The FBI now believes she may have corrupted officials within their own ranks." "Is that why we're not working with them anymore?" Alexander looked sharply at her. "How did you know that?" Lily shrugged. "I overheard Jackson talking about going dark and operating independently. And then there are no FBI agents here, like there were in New York." A rueful smile touched Alexander's lips. "You'd make an excellent spy, Lily. Yes, we've temporarily severed official connections. There's evidence suggesting Victoria may have compromised federal law enforcement through blackmail and bribes." "So we're alone out here," Lily concluded, suppressing a shiver that had nothing to do with the mountain cold. "Not alone," Alexander corrected. The team here consists of people I've known for decades, people whose loyalty I trust completely." Before Lily could respond, the glass door slid open and Mrs. Winters stepped onto the deck. "Mr. Blackwood, the secure call you were expecting is ready in your study." Alexander nodded, placing a gentle hand on Lily's shoulder. "We'll get through this, I promise. Why don't you go inside? It's getting colder." After he left, Lily remained on the deck for a few more minutes, studying the surrounding wilderness. Their isolation felt both comforting and terrifying. Safety through seclusion, but nowhere to run if that safety was breached. When she finally went inside, she found her mother alone, the twins having been taken for their afternoon lessons with the tutor who had accompanied them from New York. "Everything okay?" Sarah asked, noting her daughter's pensive expression. Lily settled beside her mother on the couch. "Dad says Victoria might have people in the FBI. That's why we're hiding from everyone." Sarah's face tightened with concern. "Alexander has always been careful about who he trusts. If he's cutting ties with federal authorities, he must have compelling evidence." "Were you and Dad ever happy together?" Lily asked suddenly, the question emerging from a place she hadn't realized was bothering her. "Before everything got complicated?" Sarah's expression softened, a small smile playing at her lips. "Yes, we were. Very happy for a while. Alexander was different from anyone I'd ever known, brilliant and powerful, but with a kindness that surprised me. When we were together, it felt like anything was possible." "Then why did you leave without telling him about me?" Sarah sighed, pain evident in her eyes. "I started receiving threats. Anonymous messages, strange incidents at my apartment. At first I thought it was just harassment because of my relationship with Alexander, but then I found surveillance photos of me in my mailbox, photos taken inside my home." Lily's eyes widened. "Victoria was watching you." "I didn't know it was her at the time," Sarah continued, "but I was terrified. When I discovered I was pregnant, I made a choice to protect you by disappearing. I convinced myself Alexander would move on, that the threats would stop if I wasn't in his life. But they didn't stop," Lily said quietly. "No," Sarah admitted. "They just became more subtle. Jobs that mysteriously fell through, apartments where strange things happened. We kept moving, kept changing our names slightly. I thought we were staying ahead of whoever was after us. Until the accident." Their conversation was interrupted by a commotion from the front of the house. Security personnel were moving with sudden urgency, and Jackson appeared in the living room doorway. "Mrs. Parker, Lily, please come with me immediately," he said, his tone leaving no room for questions. "What's happening?" Sarah asked, struggling to rise quickly with her still recovering body. "Security breach," Jackson replied tersely. "Perimeter sensors detected unauthorized movement on the North Ridge. Could be nothing, but we're moving everyone to the safe room as a precaution." Lily helped her mother toward the central elevator that would take them to the underground level where the safe room was located. As they moved through the house, she noticed security teams deploying to defensive positions, weapons drawn. In the safe room, a bunker-like space equipped with independent power, air filtration, and communication systems, they found Alexander already waiting with the twins and Mrs. Winters. "Probably just local wildlife triggering the sensors," Alexander assured them, though Lily noted the tension in his posture. "But we're taking every precaution." Hours passed in the confined space, the twins eventually falling asleep on one of the cots, while the adults maintained a tense vigil. Communication with the security teams came through a specialized radio system, with coded updates that revealed little to Lily's ears. It was nearly midnight when Jackson's voice came through with news. "Perimeter secure. False alarm confirmed. Eagle and family can return to nest." The relief in the room was palpable as they prepared to return upstairs. As Alexander helped a sleeping Mason into his arms, his secure phone buzzed with an incoming message. Lily, standing nearby, saw his face drain of color as he read the screen. "Alexander?" Sarah questioned, immediately sensing something was wrong. "It's from Victoria," he said, voice hollow with shock, "sent directly to my secure line." "What does it say?" Jackson demanded, already reaching for his communication device to alert the teams. Alexander turned the phone so they could all see the message, a single line of text, followed by an image that made Lily's blood run cold. "Check your safe room supplies. Something's missing." The attached photo showed Victoria Westlake standing in what was unmistakably the Montana Properties kitchen, holding up a coffee mug with Alexander's company logo. The timestamp on the image showed it had been taken just 3 hours earlier, while they were already at the property. "She's been inside the house," Lily whispered, the implications hitting her like a physical blow. Alexander was already moving, pulling open storage cabinets in the safe room and checking supplies. When he reached the medical cabinet, he froze. "The insulin," he said, voice tight with controlled panic. "The boys' emergency insulin supply. It's gone." Mrs. Winters immediately moved to the twins, checking the insulin pumps attached to their small bodies. "They have enough in their current pumps for approximately 12 hours, she reported. After that, she didn't need to finish the sentence. Without insulin, Ethan and Mason would slip into diabetic ketoacidosis, the same dangerous condition they'd been in when Lily first found them in the park. "How did she get in?" Sarah asked, clutching Lily's hand tightly. "How did she know about this place?" "More importantly," Jackson added grimly, "is she still here?" A comprehensive search of the property revealed no intruders, but the security system had been expertly compromised. Cameras had been looped to show empty corridors, while someone, presumably Victoria or one of her operatives, had moved freely through the house. Back in the main living area, with security doubled and the twins kept close, Alexander paced while coordinating emergency measures. "We need replacement insulin immediately," he directed Jackson. "Contact Dr. Chen. She can prepare the specific formulation the boys need. Have the helicopter ready for emergency medical evacuation if necessary." "The nearest hospital with pediatric endocrinology is in Bozeman," Mrs. Winters provided. "Approximately 40 minutes by helicopter in current weather conditions." Lily watched the controlled chaos, a horrible realization dawning. "She's trying to recreate what happened in the park," she said quietly, "when I found Ethan and Mason. She's making it happen again." Alexander stopped pacing, his eyes meeting Lily's with sudden understanding. "You're right. This is theatrical, symbolic. Victoria doesn't just want to hurt us. She wants to do it in a way that perverts the moment our family came together." "But why?" Sarah asked. "What does she gain by this elaborate game?" "A control," Alexander replied grimly. "She's demonstrating that she can reach us anywhere, that our safety is an illusion she can shatter at will." A terrible thought occurred to Lily. "Dad, what if the insulin wasn't all she took?" The implications of this question hit everyone simultaneously. If Victoria had access to the safe room supplies, what might she have left behind? Alexander immediately activated his security tablet, bringing up environmental monitoring for the entire compound. "Jackson, initiate full-spectrum scanning. Check for biological, chemical, and explosive residue everywhere, especially the ventilation systems." As the security team deployed detection equipment throughout the house, Lily found herself drawn to the large windows overlooking the valley. The moonlight illuminated the snow-covered landscape, peaceful and oblivious to the human drama unfolding within the glass walls. A flash of movement on the ridge caught her attention. Just for a second, a dark figure against the snow, too large to be wildlife. "Dad!" she called urgently. "There's someone on the ridge." Before Alexander could reach the window, the entire valley was suddenly illuminated by powerful spotlights originating from the surrounding peaks. The Montana property, designed to blend into the landscape during the day, now stood exposed like a brightly lit stage in a darkened theater. Through the glass walls, They could see figures in white winter camouflage moving steadily toward the house from all directions. "They're coming," Lily whispered, understanding now the true purpose of Victoria's message. It wasn't just a taunt, it was the opening move in her endgame. Victoria Westlake hadn't just found their hiding place, she had turned it into a trap. Panic room. Now. Alexander's command cut through the stunned silence as security alarms blared throughout the house. Jackson was already moving, shepherding Sarah and the now-awake twins toward the central elevator. "Lily, come on!" Sarah called urgently when her daughter remained frozen at the window. "They're everywhere," Lily whispered, counting at least a dozen figures converging on the house through the snow. In the harsh spotlight illumination, she could see they carried weapons. Alexander physically pulled her from the window. "We don't have much time. Stay close to me." As they rushed toward the elevator, gunfire erupted outside, Alexander's security team engaging the intruders. The sound of breaking glass came from somewhere in the house, followed by the distinctive pop of flash-bang grenades. "They've breached the east wing," Jackson reported through his comm device as they crowded into the elevator. "Defense teams are falling back to secondary positions." The elevator descended smoothly to the underground level where the safe room was located. As they hurried down the corridor, Lucky whimpering at Lily's heels, Alexander's secure phone buzzed again. The message displayed a simple video link. Despite Jackson's protest, Alexander opened it. Victoria Westlake's face filled the screen. She looked nothing like her mugshot from federal custody, immaculately styled, composed, seated in what appeared to be a luxurious office. "Hello, Alexander," she said, her voice cultured and eerily calm. "I hope you're enjoying family game night. Unfortunately, your current residence is about to become rather uncomfortable. My team has orders to retrieve the children. Whether they do so gently or roughly depends entirely on your cooperation." Alexander's knuckles whitened around the phone. "Victoria, this is madness. Whatever vendetta you have against me, this stopped being about you alone years ago, darling," Victoria interrupted. "This is about legacy, about what you took from me, about balance." Her expression hardened. "You have 30 minutes to surrender the children, or my team will use more persuasive methods to retrieve them." The video ended abruptly. Alexander looked physically ill. "What did she mean by what you took from me?" Lily asked as they reached the safe room door. "Not now," Alexander muttered, entering the complex security code to unlock the reinforced door. Inside the safe room, Mrs. Winters was already preparing emergency medical supplies for the twins, whose faces were pale with fear. "How long can we hold out in here?" Sarah asked, helping the boys onto one of the cots. "The room is designed to withstand virtually any conventional attack," Jackson explained. "Independent air, power, and water for up to 2 weeks. Communication systems on secure satellites." "But the boys don't have 2 weeks," Lily pointed out, "without their insulin." The unspoken reality hung heavy in the air. Victoria had engineered the perfect trap, a siege they couldn't outlast due to the twins' medical needs. Alexander moved to the safe room's communication console. "I'm contacting our emergency extraction team. If we can get a helicopter to the roof—" "Sir," Jackson interrupted, checking the security feeds. "The spotlights on the ridges. They're not just for illumination. They appear to be housing surface-to-air missile systems. Any aircraft approaching would be targeted immediately." The realization of how thoroughly they'd been outmaneuvered settled over the room. Victoria had planned for every contingency. "There has to be another way out," Lily insisted, refusing to accept defeat. "What about the tunnels you mentioned? The emergency exits?" "All access points would be covered by now," Jackson said grimly. "Victoria's team includes former Special Forces operatives. They know standard evacuation protocols." A heavy silence fell over the room, broken only by the distant sound of gunfire as Alexander's security team continued their increasingly desperate defense of the property. "She doesn't want to kill us," Lily said suddenly, thinking aloud. "If she did, she wouldn't have warned us or given a deadline. She specifically wants the children, me and the twins." "But why?" Sarah asked, protectively drawing Mason closer as he trembled against her side. "Leverage," Alexander replied, his voice hollow. "Control over my legacy, my future." "No," Lily said, a terrible understanding dawning. "It's more than that. Mum said Victoria couldn't have children with you, but now you have 3 children, the twins and me. She wants to take what she couldn't create." The adults exchanged horrified glances as the twisted logic of Victoria's obsession became clear. "We have to split up," Lily continued, her mind racing ahead. "She's expecting all of us to stay together in the safe room. If some of us can create a diversion." "Absolutely not," Alexander cut her off. "I'm not risking any of you." "We're already at risk," Lily insisted, "and the twins need their insulin." "We have to do something before—" Her words were interrupted by a deafening explosion somewhere above them. The safe room shook, dust falling from the ceiling. "They've breached the main structure," Jackson reported, checking the security feeds that were still operational. "They're moving methodically through the house, neutralizing our remaining security personnel." Another explosion, closer this time. The lights flickered briefly before the backup systems engaged. "They're targeting the elevator shaft," Jackson continued, "trying to access the underground level." Alexander made a decision. "Jackson, Mrs. Winters, prepare the children for emergency evacuation through Maintenance Tunnel B. It's the least obvious exit, might still be uncompromised." "What about you?" Sarah asked, fear evident in her voice. "I'm going to negotiate with Victoria," Alexander replied grimly. "Buy you time to get the children to safety." "No," Sarah protested. "She'll kill you." "Death isn't what Victoria wants for me," Alexander said. "She wants me to suffer, to live knowing she's won." Lily looked between her parents, understanding with horrible clarity what Alexander was proposing, sacrificing himself to save them. "I'm staying with you," she declared firmly. "Lily, no!" Both parents began simultaneously. "Listen to me," Lily insisted. "Victoria wants all 3 children, but she specifically mentioned me in that video link. I found the twins in the park. I'm the one who brought us all together, the symbol of everything she couldn't have. If I stay with Dad, it creates confusion in her plan. And it gives Mom a better chance of getting the twins out through the maintenance tunnel." The logic was sound, even as the emotional cost was unbearable. Sarah looked devastated, torn between her children's safety. "Mom, you have to go with Ethan and Mason," Lily continued. "They need their insulin and they need you, Mrs. Winters, and Jackson can protect you better if it's just the 3 of you." Alexander knelt before his daughter, his eyes filled with a mixture of pride and anguish. "Lily, what you're suggesting is incredibly brave, but I can't ask this of you." "You're not asking," Lily replied, with a determination beyond her 7 years. "I'm choosing. This is my family too, and I'm going to help protect it." Another explosion rocked the structure, closer still. Decisions had to be made immediately. With heart-wrenching swiftness, the plan was enacted. While Jackson and Mrs. Winters prepared the twins for evacuation through the hidden maintenance tunnel, Sarah and Lily shared what might be their final embrace. "I love you, my brave girl," Sarah whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Stay alive. No matter what happens, stay alive." "I will," Lily promised. "Get the boys to safety. We'll find you." The goodbye with the twins was equally devastating, their young faces confused and frightened as they were separated from their newfound sister. "We'll see each other soon," Lily assured them, forcing confidence into her voice. "This is just like one of our spy missions, remember?" As Sarah, the twins, Jackson and Mrs. Winters disappeared into the narrow maintenance tunnel. their best hope for escaping the compound undetected, Lily turned to face her father. With Lucky pressed against her leg for comfort, she took a deep breath. "What now?" she asked. Alexander looked down at his daughter with an expression of profound respect. "Now we face Victoria together, and we make her regret ever threatening our family." As they prepared to emerge from the safe room to confront their nemesis, Lily couldn't help but wonder if they were walking willingly into a trap from which there would be no escape. What she couldn't know was that Victoria's plan extended far beyond this isolated mountain compound, and that the true reason for her obsession with the Blackwood children was more terrifying than anyone had imagined. They emerged from the safe room to find Victoria's operatives already waiting, weapons trained on them. 4 men in tactical gear stood in the corridor, their faces obscured by balaclavas. Alexander positioned himself slightly in front of Lily, one hand resting protectively on her shoulder. "Mr. Blackwood," the lead operative acknowledged with a curt nod. "Ms. Westlake is waiting in the main living area. Please come with us. Any resistance will be met with appropriate force." "The dog stays with my daughter," Alexander stated firmly as one of the men eyed Lucky with suspicion. The operative nodded again. "Acceptable. Move." They were escorted through the underground level to the elevator, which had been forcibly opened. The journey upward was tense and silent, Lily pressing closer to her father with each passing second. The Montana property, so beautiful and peaceful just hours earlier, had been transformed into a war zone. Broken glass crunched beneath their feet as they were led through damaged corridors. Alexander's security team was nowhere to be seen, either neutralized or forced into retreat. In the main living area, Victoria Westlake stood by the massive windows, silhouetted against the spotlight still illuminating the valley. She turned as they entered, her eyes immediately finding Lily. "At last we meet," she said, her voice cultured and calm. "The miraculous child who found the twins in the park. How serendipitous that must have seemed to Alexander." "Where's my security team?" Alexander demanded. Victoria waved her hand dismissively. "Those still breathing have been contained. You really should invest in better personnel, darling. These were embarrassingly easy to neutralize." Her gaze returned to Lily, studying her with unsettling intensity. "You have his eyes. I always wondered what our children might have looked like." Lily stared back defiantly. "Where are the twins' insulin supplies? They need them to survive." A smile touched Victoria's lips. "Pragmatic. I like that." She nodded to one of her operatives, who produced a small medical cooler. "The insulin is safe. The boys will receive their medication when needed, provided certain conditions are met." "What conditions?" Alexander asked, his voice tight with controlled fury. Victoria moved to a sleek leather chair, sitting with the poise of someone in a business meeting rather than the midst of an armed siege. "I want what's rightfully mine, Alexander. What I would have had if you hadn't destroyed everything we built." "You destroyed it yourself when you embezzled millions and drove Charles to suicide," Alexander replied coldly. Victoria's expression hardened momentarily before she regained her composure. "Ancient history. I'm more interested in the future now. Specifically, the future of Blackwood Industries and its subsidiaries." Understanding dawned on Alexander's face. "This is about the company. All of this, the attacks, the threats to my family, for corporate control." "Not just corporate control," Victoria corrected. "Total control. You will sign over your majority share of Blackwood Industries to me. You will resign from all boards and positions. You will make a public statement citing personal reasons for your retirement, and most importantly, you will legally surrender custody of all 3 children to me." The room fell silent as the magnitude of her demands registered. Lily felt physically ill at the thought of being under Victoria's control. "You're insane," Alexander finally said. "No court would grant you custody of my children." Victoria's smile turned cold. Courts can be persuaded when presented with evidence that a father is unstable, dangerous, perhaps even criminally negligent. Evidence I've spent years carefully constructing. No, she nodded to another operative, who opened a laptop displaying a series of doctored photographs and fabricated documents. Alexander appearing intoxicated at board meetings, financial records suggesting massive fraud, medical reports indicating the twins had been repeatedly hospitalized due to parental negligence with their insulin management. A comprehensive case for your unfitness as a parent, Victoria explained, combined with my own sterling reputation as a philanthropist and child welfare advocate, a reputation I've meticulously cultivated while you thought I was plotting mere financial revenge. No one will believe this, Alexander insisted, though doubt flickered in his eyes. People believe what the media tells them to believe, Victoria replied simply, and I control significant media interests now. The narrative is already prepared, the tragic story of a brilliant businessman who descended into addiction and negligence after his wife's death, endangering his children until a concerned family friend intervened. She turned her attention back to Lily. You're an unexpected addition to the narrative, of course, but adaptations can be made. The long-lost daughter, neglected and homeless, finally rescued and given the home she deserves. With you, Lily challenged, unable to contain her disgust. You tried to kill my mother. Twice. Victoria's expression didn't change. Your mother was an unfortunate complication, but children are adaptable, as I'm sure you know from your challenging circumstances. In time, you might even come to appreciate the opportunities I can provide. Never, Lily stated flatly. We'll see, Victoria replied, unperturbed. She returned her attention to Alexander. You have a choice to make. Sign the documents my lawyer has prepared, relinquishing your company and your children, or watch as everything you've built is systematically destroyed, your reputation, your legacy, and ultimately your family. Alexander's face was a mask of controlled rage. And if I sign? What guarantees do I have that you'll keep your word about the children's welfare? You'll be permitted monthly supervised visits, assuming your behavior remains acceptable, Victoria said magnanimously. I'm not a monster, Alexander. I don't wish to deprive the children of their father entirely. I simply intend to ensure they're raised properly, with the advantages and discipline appropriate to their station. Lily watched her father carefully, sensing him weighing impossible options. She couldn't let him surrender everything to this woman. Not for her sake, not for anyone's. There's something you should know, Lily said suddenly, addressing Victoria directly, before you make all these plans for our future. Victoria raised an eyebrow, amused by the child's audacity. Oh? And what might that be? Mom, the twins, Mrs. Winters and Jackson aren't in the tunnel where you're expecting to find them, Lily said, her heart pounding but her voice steady. They figured out your plan. They're already gone. It was a desperate bluff, but delivered with such conviction that uncertainty flickered across Victoria's face. Check the maintenance tunnel, she ordered one of her operatives. Now! As the man hurried to comply, Lily continued. And the emergency insulin supplies you took? They're just saline solution? Dad switched them months ago as a security precaution. The real supplies are somewhere you'll never find them. This second lie was even bolder than the first, but Lily maintained unwavering eye contact with Victoria, channeling every ounce of defiance she possessed. Victoria's composure cracked slightly. You're lying. Am I? Lily challenged. You've been so focused on your perfect plan that you didn't consider we might have anticipated it. Dad's been tracking your movements for weeks. Alexander, quickly catching on to his daughter's strategy, added, Victoria, you've overplayed your hand. Federal agents are already en route to this location. Your elaborate scheme is collapsing as we speak. For a moment, doubt clouded Victoria's expression. Then the operative returned, his posture conveying bad news before he even spoke. The maintenance tunnel is empty, he reported. No sign of the others. Victoria's face hardened with fury. Find them. Check every exit, every hiding place. They can't have gone far. As her operatives scrambled to comply, Victoria turned back to Alexander and Lily, her earlier poise replaced by cold rage. This changes nothing. You've merely delayed the inevitable. Or perhaps, Alexander suggested, you should consider cutting your losses. Take what dignity remains and surrender yourself to authorities. I'll ensure you receive proper psychiatric treatment. Victoria laughed, a brittle sound devoid of humor. Always the magnanimous victor, aren't you, Alexander? But this game isn't over. She moved to the window, staring out at the illuminated valley. I've waited 15 years for this moment. I can wait a few hours more while my team hunts down your precious family. She turned back, her smile chilling. And they will find them, Alexander. This valley is completely surrounded. Every road, trail, and potential escape route is monitored. What Victoria didn't know, what Lily desperately hoped was true, was that Sarah and the others had indeed escaped through an alternative route Alexander had whispered to Jackson before they separated. Not the maintenance tunnel, but a hidden emergency exit designed for exactly this type of worst-case scenario. If everything had gone according to plan, they should be halfway to the backup extraction point by now, where Alexander's most trusted pilot would be waiting with medical supplies and transport to safety. As Victoria issued more orders to her increasingly agitated team, Lily exchanged a subtle glance with her father. They needed to keep Victoria distracted, keep her focus divided between them and the search for the others. Every minute they bought increased the chances of Sarah and the twins reaching safety. What they couldn't possibly know was that at that very moment their plan was facing an unexpected complication. One that would force Sarah to make an impossible choice and reveal a secret she had kept hidden from everyone, including Alexander, for the past 7 years. 10 miles from the Montana property, Sarah Parker huddled with the twins behind a fallen tree, listening to the distant sound of helicopter rotors. The emergency escape route, a narrow tunnel leading to an underground garage housing specialized all-terrain vehicles, had worked perfectly until they'd reached the valley's edge. There, they'd encountered an unexpected roadblock. Victoria's operatives had discovered and disabled the vehicles. With Jackson wounded in the brief firefight that followed and Mrs. Winters struggling to carry the medical supplies through deep snow, they'd been forced to continue on foot toward the extraction point. How much farther? Ethan whispered, his small face pale with cold and fatigue. Just 3 more miles, Sarah assured him, though she knew the distance would be grueling for the 5-year-olds in these conditions. The pilot will be waiting with warm blankets and hot chocolate. Mason, always more perceptive, studied her face carefully. You're worried about Lily and Dad. Sarah managed a reassuring smile. They're very smart and very brave. They'll be okay. Jackson crawled over to their position, wincing as the movement aggravated the bullet wound in his shoulder. Helicopter's making another sweep, he reported grimly. They're using thermal imaging to track us. We need to keep moving. Mrs. Winters checked the twins' insulin pumps, her expression tight with concern. We have approximately 4 hours before we need new supplies. The extraction point has everything they need, but we must reach it in time. Sarah gazed at the snowy forest stretching before them, then back at the mountain where her daughter remained in Victoria's clutches. The choice tore at her heart. Continue toward safety with the twins, or turn back to help Lily and Alexander. We need to split up, she decided finally. Mrs. Winters, you take the twins to the extraction point with the medical supplies. Jackson and I will create a diversion to draw the helicopter away from your path. That's too dangerous, Mrs. Winters protested. You're still recovering from your injuries. And Jackson is wounded, Sarah acknowledged, but the twins are the priority. They need their medication. and they need to reach safety. After a tense discussion, the plan was set. Sarah hugged the twins fiercely, promising to see them soon. As Mrs. Winters led the boys deeper into the forest toward the extraction point, Sarah and Jackson prepared to draw Victoria's search team in the opposite direction. "There's something you should know," Jackson said quietly, as they watched the helicopter's searchlight sweep the valley floor, "about Victoria's obsession with the children." "What do you mean?" Sarah asked. "It's not just about revenge or control," Jackson explained, checking his remaining ammunition with his good arm. "During the divorce proceedings 15 years ago, medical evaluations revealed Victoria couldn't have children. Specifically, she couldn't carry a pregnancy to term. She blamed Alexander for waiting too long to start a family." "That doesn't explain her fixation on taking our children now," Sarah argued. "Plenty of people can't have biological children. They adopt or use surrogates, like Alexander did with the twins." Jackson's expression grew grave. "There's more. Victoria underwent experimental fertility treatments in Switzerland after the divorce, treatments that may have affected her mental stability. Alexander's intelligence suggests she's convinced herself that his children, all of them, rightfully belong to her." Sarah absorbed this disturbing information. She doesn't just want to hurt Alexander by taking the children. She genuinely believes they should be hers. "Exactly," Jackson confirmed, "which makes her infinitely more dangerous." Before they could discuss further, the helicopter changed direction, heading directly toward their position. They'd been spotted. "Run!" Jackson shouted, firing several shots into the air to draw attention away from the direction Mrs. Winters had taken with the twins. Sarah sprinted through the snow, her still recovering body protesting with each step. Behind her, she heard Jackson continue firing until his ammunition was depleted. The helicopter's spotlight fixed on them, and Sarah knew they had succeeded in becoming the primary target, giving Mrs. Winters and the twins their best chance to reach the extraction point undetected. What she hadn't counted on was the second helicopter that appeared over the ridge, cutting off their escape route. Surrounded and exhausted, Sarah and Jackson were forced to surrender. As Victoria's operatives zip-tied their hands and loaded them onto one of the helicopters, Sarah took small comfort in knowing the twins might still escape, and in the secret she carried, one that might yet save them all. Back at the Montana property, Lily and Alexander remained under Victoria's watchful eye as her increasingly frustrated team reported failure after failure to locate the twins. The temperature in the room had dropped, literally and figuratively, as Victoria's icy rage intensified with each passing hour. "Your wife and security chief have been captured," Victoria announced as a communication came through on her operative's radio. "They're being brought here now. Only the nanny and the twins remain at large." Alexander maintained his composure, though Lily could sense his distress. "Sarah is injured. If your people have harmed her further—" "Save your threats," Victoria interrupted coldly. "She'll receive appropriate medical attention. I'm not a barbarian, Alexander." Lily, seated on the floor with Lucky pressed protectively against her side, watched the dynamic between the adults with growing unease. Victoria's composure was fracturing, her earlier poise giving way to visible agitation as her perfect plan continued to unravel. When Sarah was brought into the living area, her clothes wet from snow and face pale with exhaustion, Lily had to stop herself from running to her mother. Alexander made no such attempt at restraint, moving immediately to Sarah's side, despite Victoria's operatives tensing their weapons. "I'm all right," Sarah assured them both, though her labored breathing suggested otherwise. "The twins are safe. Mrs. Winters got them away." Victoria slammed her hand on a nearby table. "You're lying." "My teams have the entire valley surrounded. There's no way out." A smile touched Sarah's lips despite her exhaustion. "There's always a way out if you know where to look." Victoria studied her with naked hatred. Where are they? Tell me now, or I'll have my men start breaking your daughter's fingers one by one." "You won't touch her," Sarah said with unexpected steel in her voice, "because I have something you want more than revenge, more than control over Alexander's company, more than the children themselves." Victoria's eyes narrowed suspiciously. "What could you possibly have that I would value so highly?" "The truth about Charles's suicide," Sarah replied evenly. "The real reason he took his life 15 years ago." The room went utterly still. Even Victoria's operatives seemed to sense the seismic shift in the confrontation. "You know nothing about Charles," Victoria said, but uncertainty had crept into her voice. "I know everything," Sarah countered. "I was an accountant at Westlake Industries, remember? I worked directly with the financial records you and Charles manipulated. I know which offshore accounts received the embezzled funds. I know which regulations were violated. And most importantly, I know what Charles discovered the night before he died." Alexander looked between the women, confusion evident on his face. "Sarah, what are you talking about? How could you know details about Charles's death?" "Because I was there," Sarah replied softly. "Not in the room, but in the building. I was working late, reviewing discrepancies in the quarterly reports. I saw Charles enter his office after hours. I heard the gunshot, and before I called emergency services, I saw what was on his computer screen." Victoria had gone very pale. "You're bluffing." "Project Chimera," Sarah said simply. "Charles found your private files about Project Chimera. That's why he took his life. Not because of the embezzlement Alexander discovered, but because he learned what you were really funding with that money." The name meant nothing to Lily or Alexander, but Victoria's reaction was immediate and visceral. She stepped back as if physically struck, her composure completely shattered. "How dare you?" she whispered. "You know nothing." "I know enough," Sarah replied. "Enough to understand why you're so obsessed with children, with legacy. Enough to know what those experimental treatments in Switzerland were really about." Victoria's hand moved to her jacket, and for a terrifying moment, Lily thought she was reaching for a weapon. Instead, she produced a small remote control. "This conversation is over," Victoria said, her voice unnaturally calm. "You've forced my hand, Sarah Parker. I had hoped to resolve this situation with minimal collateral damage, but you leave me no choice." She pressed a button on the remote. Throughout the house, small red lights began blinking on devices Lily hadn't noticed before. Devices Victoria's team must have planted during their initial breach. "You have exactly 15 minutes before this entire compound is reduced to rubble," Victoria announced. "The charges are on a fixed timer. Cannot be stopped, cannot be disarmed. If the twins are indeed beyond my reach for now, I will simply have to be patient. Alexander's legacy dies here tonight, along with all of you." With that, Victoria turned and walked calmly toward the exit, her operatives following in disciplined formation. "You won't get away with this," Alexander called after her. "The authorities will find evidence of a tragic accident," Victoria finished for him, pausing at the doorway. "A gas leak, perhaps. Such a shame about the Blackwood family, they'll say. At least the twins survived, safely in the custody of their godmother, me." As the door closed behind Victoria and her team, the reality of their situation crashed down on the remaining occupants of the Montana property. 15 minutes to escape a building rigged to explode in a remote valley surrounded by armed operatives, with a wounded security chief and Sarah barely able to stand. Lily looked at her parents, fear threatening to overwhelm her until she remembered something, a detail from her first days in the Blackwood penthouse when she'd explored Alexander's study and discovered his contingency plans. "Dad," she said urgently, "the panic room. You said it was designed to withstand anything. Would that include explosives?" Hope flickered in Alexander's eyes. "Theoretically, yes. It's built to military specifications, with reinforced walls and independent air supply." "Then we need to get back there. Now." As they helped Jackson to his feet and began moving toward the underground level, Lily couldn't shake the feeling that Victoria's retreat had been too easy, her acceptance of defeat too sudden. What was Project Chimera, and why had the mere mention of it caused such a dramatic reaction? What they couldn't know, as they raced against Victoria's 15-minute countdown, was that their nemesis had indeed retreated, but not to escape. Victoria Westlake was heading directly toward the extraction point where Mrs. Winters and the twins were expected to arrive, and she wasn't planning to leave any witnesses to what would happen next. The explosion, when it came, was more powerful than any of them had anticipated. Even within the panic room's reinforced walls, they felt the concussive force as Victoria's charges detonated throughout the Montana property. The lights flickered, emergency systems activated, and a fine dust sifted down from the ceiling. Structural integrity holding at 92%, reported the automated monitoring system. Oxygen levels normal, no toxic gas detected. Alexander helped Sarah to one of the cots, while Jackson checked the security feeds, most of which showed only static as the house above them collapsed. "Communications?" Alexander asked tersely. Jackson shook his head. "Primary systems destroyed in the blast. Backup satellite link attempting to connect." Lily sat with Lucky, who whimpered at the continuing rumbles as sections of the house settled. She stroked his fur reassuringly while her mind raced with questions. Why had Victoria abandoned her carefully orchestrated plan so abruptly? What could Project Chimera possibly mean? And most urgently, had the twins and Mrs. Winters reached the extraction point safely? "Dad," she said finally, "what did Mom mean about Charles Westlake's suicide, about what he discovered?" Alexander glanced at Sarah, who nodded weakly. "She deserves to know everything," Sarah said. "We're past keeping secrets." With a heavy sigh, Alexander sat beside Lily. Victoria and Charles Westlake were involved in numerous questionable business ventures beyond the embezzlement I discovered. I knew their companies were funding medical research, but I never knew the specifics. "What kind of medical research?" Lily pressed. "Experimental fertility treatments, apparently," Alexander replied, looking to Sarah for confirmation, "though I'm now realizing there must have been more to it." Sarah struggled to sit up, determination overcoming her exhaustion. Victoria couldn't have children, that much is true. But Project Chimera went far beyond conventional fertility treatments. From what I saw in those files 15 years ago, she was funding research into genetic engineering, specifically creating children with enhanced traits. "Like designer babies?" Lily asked, remembering a science program she'd once seen. "Much more extreme," Sarah clarified. Victoria was obsessed with legacy, with creating perfect children who would dominate in business, politics, everything. Children engineered to continue the Westlake dynasty for generations. Alexander looked stunned. "That's impossible. The technology was illegal in the United States," Sarah interrupted. "That's why the research was conducted in offshore facilities, funded through the accounts you caught them embezzling from. Charles apparently didn't know the full extent of what Victoria was doing with those funds until the night he died." "And you've kept this secret all these years?" Alexander asked, disbelief evident in his voice. Sarah's expression was pained. "I was afraid, Alexander. After Charles died, I found evidence that Victoria had identified me as a witness. I changed departments, tried to keep a low profile. When we met years later, I had no idea you were her ex-husband until after we'd already become involved. By then, I was falling in love with you and terrified of losing you." Jackson interrupted their conversation. "Satellite link established, sending emergency signal to extraction team." Relief washed over Alexander's face. "If Mrs. Winters and the twins made it to the extraction point, we'll know soon." Minutes passed in tense silence as they waited for a response. Finally, the communication system crackled to life. Echo base to Montana team, came a voice they recognized as Alexander's head of emergency operations. We have confirmed pickup of 2 minors and 1 adult female at secondary extraction point. Repeat, packages secure and en route to safe location. The relief in the room was palpable. Alexander embraced Sarah, while Lily felt tears of joy spring to her eyes. The twins were safe. Montana team, please confirm status, the voice continued. Satellite imagery shows catastrophic damage to primary structure. Jackson activated the response channel. Montana team confirming 4 survivors in secure bunker. Requesting immediate extraction. Be advised, hostile forces may remain in the area. Understood. Extraction team inbound, ETA 40 minutes. As they prepared for evacuation, gathering the few emergency supplies stored in the panic room, Lily noticed her mother's continued unease. Mum, the twins are safe. We're going to be okay. Sarah attempted a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Victoria won't stop, Lily, not after what I revealed about Project Chimera. She knows I have information that could destroy her completely. But you said that was 15 years ago, Lily pointed out. Surely the project is shut down by now. A shadow crossed Sarah's face. I don't think it ever stopped. The treatments Victoria underwent in Switzerland after her divorce from your father, I believe they were connected to Project Chimera and her obsession with the twins. She trailed off, looking troubled. What about the twins? Alexander asked sharply. Sarah hesitated before answering. When you created them through surrogacy after your second wife died, did you use a fertility clinic with connections to European research facilities? Alexander's expression shifted from confusion to growing horror. Global Life Fertility. They had partnerships throughout Europe, including Switzerland. They came highly recommended for their success rates with complex cases. His voice grew urgent. Sarah, what are you suggesting? I'm suggesting Victoria may have compromised the clinic, Sarah replied carefully. That the twins' exceptional intelligence, their perfect health despite their diabetes, might not be coincidental, Alexander finished, looking physically ill. You think she somehow accessed Project Chimera technology during their conception? It would explain her specific obsession with them, Sarah said quietly. If she sees them as partly hers, as products of her research. That's insane, Alexander protested, though doubt had crept into his voice. She's been planning this for years, Alexander, Sarah insisted, positioning herself as their godmother, maintaining connections to their medical providers, watching from a distance. The twins aren't just your children to her, they're the successful products of her life's work. The implications hung heavy in the air. If Sarah was right, Victoria's fixation on the twins went beyond revenge or control. They were the living embodiments of her twisted vision for genetic perfection. We need to warn the extraction team, Jackson said, already moving to the communication console. If Victoria is targeting the twins specifically... A sudden crackle of static interrupted him, followed by an unfamiliar voice on the emergency channel. To any survivors at the Montana property, be advised that Victoria Westlake's helicopter has been intercepted by federal authorities. Repeat, primary target is in custody. Alexander exchanged confused glances with the others. Federal authorities? How? The voice continued. This is Special Agent Daniels, FBI Special Operations. We've been tracking Ms. Westlake's network for 18 months as part of Operation Chimera. The name sent a shock through the room. The FBI knew about Project Chimera? Ms. Westlake's capture was facilitated by information provided by her private pilot, who contacted us directly after receiving extraction coordinates for your children. The pilot was an informant? Jackson asked incredulously. Negative, Agent Daniels replied. The pilot was approached at the extraction point by a woman claiming to be Sarah Parker, who provided comprehensive documentation of Project Chimera and Victoria Westlake's activities dating back 15 years. All eyes turned to Sarah, who looked as confused as everyone else. "That's impossible," she said. "I've been here the entire time." There was a pause on the communication channel. Physical description of the woman matches Sarah Parker, including a distinctive scar on her right wrist. She referred to herself as the contingency plan and said Alexander Blackwood would understand. An expression of dawning comprehension crossed Alexander's face. "Mrs. Winters," he whispered. It wasn't Sarah she was impersonating, it was Victoria. "What?" Lily asked, struggling to follow. "Mrs. Winters wasn't just the twins' caretaker," Alexander explained, his voice filled with wonder. "She was my insurance policy. An operative I positioned years ago to protect the family if Victoria ever made her move. She was surgically altered to resemble Victoria closely enough to pass initial identification protocols." "But why would she claim to be me?" Sarah asked. "Because the documentation she provided needed to come from a credible source, someone who could plausibly have witnessed Charles's suicide and discovered the original Project Chimera files." The revelation stunned everyone into momentary silence. Alexander had been playing a long game of his own, anticipating Victoria's eventual return and preparing a counter-strategy she could never have expected. "Extraction team 10 minutes out," Agent Daniels reported. "Medical personnel standing by. The twins and their escort have reached the secure facility. All family members will be reunited within the hour." As they prepared for rescue, gathering what little remained of their possessions, Lily found herself processing the extraordinary series of events that had brought them to this point. From a homeless child digging through trash to find food, she had discovered a family, uncovered a conspiracy, and survived a vengeful woman's elaborate plot. "Do you think it's really over?" she asked her father as they waited for the extraction team to reach them. Alexander drew her close, his expression a mixture of relief and caution. "Victoria will face justice for her crimes. Her network is being dismantled as we speak, but the most important thing is that our family survived, and we're stronger for having faced this together." Sarah joined them, forming a protective circle around Lily. "We have a lot to rebuild," she said softly, "but we'll do it together this time." And as the sound of approaching helicopters reached them through the damaged structure above, Lily thought about the moment that had changed everything, finding two unconscious boys in the park when everyone else walked by. A simple act of kindness that had led to discovering her true family and her place in the world. Lucky nudged her hand, as if sensing her reflective mood. She scratched behind his ears, remembering how he had been her only companion during those desperate months on the street. Now they both had a family, imperfect, complicated, but fiercely loyal. The extraction team's arrival brought a flurry of activity, medical evaluations, security briefings, and finally, transport to the secure facility where the twins waited. As their helicopter lifted off from the ruins of the Montana property, Lily looked down at what remained of Victoria's destruction. The house was gone, reduced to rubble by the explosives, but what Victoria had failed to understand was that a home wasn't about buildings or possessions. It was about the people who stood by you in your darkest moments, who fought for you, protected you, and loved you unconditionally. Hours later, when Lily finally reunited with Ethan and Mason at the secure facility, their joyful embraces confirmed what she had always known in her heart. Family wasn't defined by circumstance or convenience. It was forged through courage, loyalty, and love, qualities that no amount of money or power could ever replicate. As the Blackwood family began planning their future, a future free from Victoria Westlake's shadow, Lily knew their journey wasn't over. There would be new challenges, new adventures, and perhaps even new threats. But facing them together made all the difference. After all, she thought as she watched her parents and brothers laughing together despite their ordeal, the strongest families weren't those born without difficulties, but those who overcame them side by side. From a homeless child to the daughter of one of the world's most powerful men, Lily Parker Blackwood had found something far more valuable than wealth or security. She had found where she truly belonged, and no one, not even Victoria Westlake, could ever take that away.